Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to our Power Hour coaching session. And I am indeed Bernadette Boas with Ball of Fire Coaching. And we do this each week on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time as an opportunity for you to get the support, the help, the advice, sometimes tough love that you need with whatever business or life challenge, question, story you want to share and you could use some support with. So more about me. I have a leadership coaching practice. I'm also a speaker and author, and I've authored my first book, Shedding the Corporate Bitch, Shifting from Bitch to Rich in Life and Business. And that is where, that's where everything that I coach, that I train, that I speak on really comes from, is really helping those individuals who are high producing, high potential, highly contributing, but yet they're struggling to be the leader that they're meant to be. And so I take individuals' questions and stories and challenges basically here each Thursday at noon Eastern Time to help you with whatever those might be. So you could just be posting your comments. And we are on LinkedIn. We are broadcasting on our Shift to Riches Today Facebook page. And so you can certainly post your question there. I'll keep an eye out in the comment section for those. And should you choose to want to join me live in the studio online, then you just need to post that. And I'd be more than welcome to send you a link. You can jump in and we can have a conversation and dig a little deeper into whatever question or challenge you might be having. All right. Today, what we're going to be talking about, and I'll give you a preview of the questions and then dive into each one of them more specifically. The two questions are, what do I do with and how do I handle negative feedback on a 360? Now, this is one of my favorite questions, actually, both of the questions today, because I do a lot of work when it comes to coaching on feedback from 360 assessments. And for those of you who may not be familiar with them, I'll also kind of inform you of what that is as well. And then the second question that I had gotten was, why is it important for me to understand the personalities and styles of my teammates? And again, this kind of hits close to my heart as a result of one of my mentors that I had many, many years ago in my early 20s. And she taught me greatly the value of this situation. And I kind of quote her and share her story, decades later, because of how powerful it was and what influence it had on me. So again, if you should, as we are live here, if you should have a question or a challenge that you're dealing with at work or at home, post it in the comment section and I'll be sure to keep an eye out for it and get to it for you. Okay. Now, if you wanted to learn more about me and what we do within Ball of Fire Coaching, feel free to go to balloffirecoaching.com. All right. So let's dive into these. The first one was, what do I do with and how do I handle negative feedback on a 360 assessment? For those of you who may not be familiar with 360 assessments, they pretty much are assessments, but 360 means that you are getting feedback from your managers, and it could be multiple layers up, and it could even be up and across. So if you support various functions or various business divisions in your organization, then they might suggest that those people that work with you on a regular day in, day out business basis provide feedback to you in this assessment. So up, and then it goes across to your peers, and then it goes down into whether or not they're direct reports of yours, or they might be, again, dotted line. Maybe you're heading up a project and therefore there's people there that would have some great and valuable input to you on a 360 assessment. But what is it? It really is an assessment to glean where your strengths are, where your areas of improvement are, and then generally overall, what comments or feedback would they have regarding your performance and areas of growth and opportunity. So that's basically it. Really 3 questions that then people freehand in any type of comments or suggestions or recommendations or feedback that they need to provide you, good, bad, or indifferent. Because what you're looking for and the objective of these 360s is, as you are advancing in your career or advancing in your leadership role as a business owner, entrepreneur, you want feedback. You really want to glean information, observations, perceptions from people all around you. So you can really become, if you're not self-aware, you're at least getting that external awareness of your actions, your behaviors, your words, your overall performance. And therefore you can make the changes that you need to make and want to make based on where you are and where you want to go. All right. So entrepreneurs and corporate professionals benefit greatly by having 360s. And if you're wanting to learn more about that, you could either go to your own HR department and inquire, or you can always reach out to us at Ball of Fire Coaching, and we'd be happy to share some information in regards to it. So that is what a 360 is. And again, any feedback is great feedback. All right. So I want to throw that out. You should always be seeking insights and observations and perceptions that others have of you for growth. All right. So you definitely want to, if it's not through a formal one, you could always, just sit down with people that you trust, that you do engage with on a regular basis, that is going to give you very straightforward, honest, and sometimes direct feedback. And you just basically gather all of that, and then we'll talk through what you could be doing with it. Now, from a coaching perspective, when I looked at this question, or I got this question and I wrote it down and I looked at it from a coaching perspective, a job of a coach is to just ask deeper questions and more questions for you to get to the conclusion or the answer or the solution or the next step, as opposed to being directed by a coach or anyone else as to what you need to do. Because part of your growth as a leader is to be able to become self-aware, assess yourself and others around you, and decide and determine and act on what needs to happen next. So as a coach, my job would be to kind of drill into the words you use and the way that you use them, and then any other observations that I can get, whether that's from an email or a Zoom call or sitting with you face to face or even on a phone call. All right. So I broke this question down into 2 parts, because the overall question again was, what do I do with and how do I handle negative feedback? So the negative feedback was the grounding here, but she wanted to understand, what does she do with it, with the feedback? And then how does she handle it? Now that was key to me. That told me that she had some emotional reaction, an emotional response to the feedback, or she has limiting beliefs, insecurities, doubts, negativities. I actually call them bitches in my world, but that's for another day. But obviously something about negative feedback really kind of stuck with her to put it in, to use the words, how do I handle? Now, negative feedback, because 360s is not only about negative feedback. Like I said, it's about what are the strengths of this individual, what are areas of improvement, and what are other observations or other input that you would want to provide. All right. So she focused on the negative feedback. And what I would suggest to anyone when it comes to feedback is I would put as much weight into positive feedback as I would in negative feedback. Now you're like, well, why? I don't have to work on my positive stuff. Actually, you do. And this is kind of what's important and what I coach a lot, especially with women on when it comes to feedback. I call it honor your riches. So when you're getting positive reinforcement, positive affirmation, positive performance reviews, positive 360 feedback, whatever the case might be, you're getting compliments, you're getting accolades, you're getting awards. Too often we kind of like giggle them off, laugh them off, and don't really sit with them and appreciate the fact that, yes, my hard work kind of resulted in X, Y, and Z. And so when I say honor your riches, I'm looking for my clients to not only focus on areas that they have to improve on, or I'm looking for anyone to not just focus on areas you want to improve on. You want to focus on, okay, what am I doing right? And I'm being told what I'm doing right. I'm being rewarded. I'm being accoladed. I'm getting a bonus. I'm getting a raise. I'm getting new clients. I'm building my business. I'm advancing in my career. I need to take time to sit back and appreciate that. And that's why I call it honor your riches. So when she kind of hung on the negative feedback in her question to me, I really needed to kind of broaden that to really understand, what does she do with positive feedback? And then what does she do with the negative feedback? And that actually caught her off guard as well. And that happens a lot. All of a sudden, someone will kind of get quiet and shut down because they feel as if they were to honor their riches, they're going to be boasting, or they're going to be, perceived as arrogant or conceited. And I would have to tell you how, I don't want to say wrong, but how inappropriate that is, because there is a way to go about kind of patting yourself on the back without coming off as if you're boasting or being conceited or arrogant, or however other people want to perceive that behavior, when you're just simply trying to honor your riches, really appreciate the fact that you worked your tail off and this is the result. So I spend a lot of time on that as much as I do on the flip side, of which she wanted to address, which was, how do I handle negative feedback? Now, I don't believe there's any such thing as negative feedback. Do you? When you really look at it. And if you are a manager or a leader, or in some way, maybe you're a parent and you have to give feedback to your child, or you're in a relationship and you have to give feedback to your partner. Feedback is all about, or negative feedback, criticism, constructive criticism, is all about learning. It's all about growing. It's all about knowing. And so I would think anyone, and in this case, Beth definitely felt this way, no one would want to kind of walk through life and not really understand kind of, am I contributing? Am I taking away from the world? Right now, I have to tell you, when I was let go in 2008, it came as a surprise. I was shocked, and I don't agree that anyone should be surprised when it comes to, in the case of business, when it comes to the performance review, when it comes to their 360, in this case, a 360 assessment, whether it comes in an award or a bonus or an accolade that they were working toward, and maybe they didn't get it. No one deserves to be surprised. It's our job as leaders, whether you're in a business of your own or in corporate, it's our job as leaders to ensure that the people around us are getting the feedback, not only at performance review time, but all the way through the year. You might have them more formally on a quarterly basis. You might have touch bases every week or a status meeting every week. But at the same time, you should be getting feedback on a regular basis. So I really wanted to ensure Beth was looking at feedback as both the positive and the areas for development. I don't like the word negative. I don't like the word failure. But those areas of strengths and those areas for improvement. And then I really wanted her to say, okay, so this is all about learning. It's all about growing. It's all about knowing. It's not about beating myself up because someone said that I talk too much in meetings and I don't, I can't get my job done. So I really want to kind of shift someone's mindset, especially as they're looking at their 360 assessment, to really kind of look at it as and to say, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? What do I now know that I didn't know before? So that would be the first thing. And then I suggested to Beth and to anyone, receive it almost as a gift, because now, I will say that not all feedback, good or bad, is given with truthful intent, with honest, supportive, helpful intent. And this is raised up to me from clients on not a regular basis, but quite often, that, oh, well, I know who wrote this, and they just don't like me. That's what, the feedback that I'll get. And so I often, and hi, Portia, I'll be right with you. 2 seconds, because I want to read your comment. And what I would suggest there is, yes, there's always haters out there. There's lovers and there's haters. There are. And there could be on your team. And therefore, some of the feedback that you get, whether that's in an assessment or in a performance review, it could be kind of, filled with, motive, so to speak. But you need to be kind of in a mindset and in a place, a confident place to kind of say, okay, I know that where this is coming from, but I'm still going to acknowledge it, because you don't want to dismiss it as if you're letting yourself off the hook. You want to acknowledge it, but you also know where it's coming from. Maybe you had a bad encounter with this individual at work or at home. Maybe you got a job promotion over and above that person, whatever the case might be. You still want to appreciate it. You still want to consider it. You still want to acknowledge it. But yet at the same time, you also know, okay, so I'm going to put it here, and therefore I'm going to address it in a certain way that might be different from someone that is very unbiased, very objective, very unemotional. And therefore you have to put a lot of weight on that, and therefore do something with it. So, but let me just take a second. I want to read Portia's comment. My manager changed my performance score. Okay. Okay, I am going to address that because I think it's a great scenario. All right, so first off, let me just continue with this, but then I want to get to that, because that is a scenario that happens regularly, and I want to be sure it's addressed. Okay, so I want someone to recognize that feedback is about learning, knowing, and growing. I want you to think about the fact that to receive it as a gift, as just a way of, okay, what can I do next, and how can I change and shift and grow as a result of this. So then what do you do with it was the second part of her question. What do you do with it? What you do with it is, first, if you're like me, you rip it apart and you put it back together again, but you go through it and you pick out, you could put on a sheet, you could put on one sheet, two columns, have two columns. One is going to be all around the strengths, because remember, the assessment is strengths, areas for improvement, and overall observations. So all your strengths you list down, you pick them out. They might have some duplicates, so you just, need to report that once. And then on the other column, put those comments and those recommendations as to areas for improvement. Now, like I said, you want to sit with both of them, and you really want to appreciate your strengths. Now, the question would be, what can I do to continue, evolving in those strengths? How can I use them to contribute even greater to the work that I'm doing and to the people that I'm serving? How can I use them to go out into the community and to my family and my friends, and really kind of lean in to all of these strengths that people have perceived of me. And you can kind of pat yourself on the back and really honor those riches. All right. And you could put a plan together as far as how are you going to leverage this information going forward. After that, you look at the areas for improvement. Now, some of them are going to be what I'll call tactical. They're going to be, or even technical. They're going to be specific skill type of areas that need to be improved on. Oh, Bernadette needs better project management skills. Bernadette needs to work on her, communication skills. There'll also be comments that are more from an emotional but soft skill perspective. Bernadette needs to be more patient. Bernadette needs to not talk as much. Bernadette, it would be great if Bernadette connected with not only her peers, but also, worked hard to engage with other areas and other teammates other than who's in her direct line. So there's, a lot of different types of areas for improvement that could be provided from those that took the assessment for, on your behalf. And so what I would do is just map them all out as well. And then what you want to do is say, okay, what are going to be the most important, the highest priority to my continuing to learn, grow, and know? How are these particular areas for improvement impacting my ability to influence, to contribute, to collaborate, to even advance in my career or in my business? And therefore, which ones are going to have the biggest bang for the buck if I really focus on them and I work toward improving them? So I would pull those out first. Now, in many cases, and this is my role as a coach, in many cases, I'd be working on those with my client, and they might say to me, "What do you think is the most important?" I would say, well, you need to go back to your stakeholders. What is your boss expecting of you? What is your teammates? What are your employees? What are your clients? What are your vendors? Looking at the 360 of the people that you influence, what is their goals and expectations of you? Because I can say one thing that I think are the top leadership skills, for instance, that's one should be working on from a soft skill perspective. And yet, your teammates and your vendors and your clients and your bosses have a perception of, this is what it's going to take for this person to move to the next level. And in order to do that, I need to see a change in this, and this. So you definitely want to go back, and you can even ask those that participated in the assessment without knowing specifically what they said. And you could simply ask, what do you think are the 1, 2, and 3 most important things I need to be working on right now? So one, you're making a whole list. You're pulling out top priorities based on what it is that you need to do to have the biggest bang for the buck. You might be talking to others and getting feedback as far as, okay, what do they think are the top 3 priorities? And then you put a plan together. You use it as your personal and professional development plan, which could be inserted into your overall performance goals for the year if you're working for a company, or even if you're running your own business. And you kind of really focus on them, just like you would on a money goal, or a number of client goal, or a advancement goal, or a bonus goal. You really want to put some metrics against it and focus on them just as you would any other goal, and then just go and act on them. Now, the one biggest action, I'll call it, that my clients want to be able to do when they go and they put that plan together and they start acting on it, they want to kind of go out and talk about the changes and the actions that they're taking and the shifts that they're making as a result of the feedback they've received and the plan they've put together. But at the same time, actions speak louder than words. So I would advise anyone, I would coach anyone who is acting on a plan, a development, personal or professional development plan, even if it wasn't through a 360. Maybe it was through your performance review. Maybe it's through a PIP, a performance improvement process. I would just go and act and execute and behave in the manner of which makes the person, makes the role and the type of person that your boss or your team or your organization's looking for, as opposed to kind of forcing recognition that yes, you've changed or you're making adjustments or you're working with or working on anything. All right. Actions speak louder than words. So as much as we do want to honor riches, there's a fine line between honoring your riches and then potentially crossing the line to where you are boasting about, oh, look at me, I am changing, and therefore you should assess me even better the next time around. A quiet observation can be so much more powerful than a loud declaration. Make sense? All right. I do want to touch on this question or the situation that I was sent. It's all about someone's performance score was changed, and yet she wasn't made aware of it beforehand, and it wasn't addressed. Again, that should never happen. And therefore, you need to, if it happens to you, you need to be able to go and address that unemotionally, logically, asking for reasoning, which should come with facts and evidence and verification of why a change was made that you weren't aware of. But as leaders of any kind, you need to ensure that your people have the fair and appropriate feedback and assessment to their performance long before you're obligated to sit down and report it or transfer it over to that individual. That individual should sit down in front of you, and at no time should they be surprised at the feedback. They should be well aware that, yes, I know when I walk into my performance review or when I get this 360 assessment back, it's going to have, certain things highlighted, certain things raised up. Now, I say that, and yet I had mentioned that when I, was let go of my job back in 2008, there were things raised to me that I wasn't told about. And therefore, I felt as if I was being caught off guard. All right. Now, whose responsibility is that? Is that the person's or is that yours? And if I was to talk to the individual that actually posted that comment, I would say that it's their responsibility. Now you might, many people will raise up to me, well, isn't it my boss's responsibility to come to me and talk to me and, about my performance and coach me and develop me? Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. And if I was talking to that manager or coaching that manager, I would certainly ask them enough questions to lead them to the answer of whether or not they are fulfilling that responsibility that they have. However, I also always tell the employee, the teammate, that it's their responsibility to seek that feedback and that guidance, and if needed, that coaching and development. So yes, structurally, and you would think from a leader perspective, your boss would share information with you proactively, productively. But yet, if they don't, because they don't like confrontation, they don't like, the whole process of having to write reviews and assess and that kind of thing. That's their issue. That's not yours. So if you're all of a sudden seeing that you're not getting feedback for any amount of time, and I'm not talking months, I'm talking even weeks, then it's really your responsibility to also be like, hey, Joanne, how am I doing? Whether you're new to a job, new to a role, you've been there 10 years, you should be touching base with, so how do you think things are going? What can I be doing differently? where would you say, my greatest strengths are that I should be leveraging even more so? You definitely want to have that conversation proactively yourself, whether or not you are getting it back. But I hear too often that, unless it's mid-years or final performance reviews, the manager is not coaching or providing feedback, and shame on them. But I would also have to touch on, shame on you if you don't seek it out. Okay. And, in this case of having a score, then lowering it and not addressing it. So it's a surprise. That is just shame on the leader. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I would say to that. Okay. All right. So that is what I had for that first question. All right, the second question, and again, I'm keeping an eye out for your comments. And again, you have an opportunity to even join me live here on camera. If there is a question or a challenge that you might be having, and you could just post kind of, Bernadette, I'm here, and I can send you a link to join me. But just post your comment. And in some cases, let me just throw this out real quick. In some cases, some of you you want the help, but you don't want to be, you don't want to be seen, and you don't want to be acknowledged by name or by face. And so, one, you don't have to give StreamYard permission for me to see your name and face. And I'll do my best to kind of not call you out unless you all of a sudden indicate that you want to be called out by name. All right. So don't not get the help. Does that make sense? Don't not get the help because you're afraid of disclosure. Still post your question or your challenge, and I will ensure that I wait and for some indication that you're okay with my using your name. And if not, then I'll just keep it to be a very general individual that posted the question or comment. All right. Now, I didn't necessarily get that far with the last individual, and she has a very unique name. So I will say I apologize for that. Should you not have wanted me to use your name? It's, like Bernadette, there's not many of us, right? So don't hesitate, and then we'll make sure that we don't bring it up. Okay, unless you give us permission to. Okay, so the next question is, why is it important for me to understand the personalities and styles of my teammates? Another question that I absolutely love. I've been doing a lot of work with clients over the past several months when it comes to DISC profiles, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But let me get to his question in regards to why it's important for him to understand his teammates. Now, this is more kind of a teammate. He's not a manager or a director or a VP, typical of who I will coach and guide. But at the same time, I was thrilled that he asked it because it indicates to me that he is not only interested in that and or concerned, not sure why he should care. But at the same time, he's aware that there might be some benefits, but he's just not sure of him really understanding the personalities and styles of the people around him. So one is whether you do have a team or not. I consider anybody and everybody a leader. I consider the fact that you want to be a leader in your life, and whether that's at work and home, or work, community, and home, whatever the case might be, we all want to be leaders in our life. We all want to contribute. We all want to have empathy and compassion and collaborate, engage, and connect with others. We want to have influence. Some of us even want to have authority and power. All of those attributes are not just business related. They're also home and community related. So I look at anybody and everybody as if they want to be a leader. So even though this individual, who is relatively young and it is a team member, not a manager of any degree. I love the fact that he was considering that there might be something around this whole personality and styles that he needs to understand with his teammates, and yet he wasn't quite sure why. So I had mentioned to him, well, and we had the conversation. Do you consider yourself to be a leader? And his answer was yes. And I said, okay, why and how? And he went on to respond to that. And where do you, where are your ambitions? Where are you looking toward as you kind of kickstart your career? And it all did lead to, more of, I want to manage a team, and I want to have a, responsibility. I want to be a director, so forth and so on. Again, I just kind of reminded him, you want to improve on yourself as a leader, correct? And he said, yes. And so then all of a sudden there was this question around personalities and styles. So this is what I say to that. Isn't it better? I want to almost say, isn't it best? Isn't it best to know those people around you? It's almost, picture you're sitting around a poker table playing poker. Don't you want to know, kind of the personality and the style of all those people around that table, who's bluffing and what are their, signs that they're bluffing? Wouldn't you want to know kind of, is one a risk taker, but one's more conservative? Is, one the loudmouth at the table, or is one really quiet and reserved and only kind of presents themselves when it's important to do so? And as a result of really understanding all these individuals, then you have a huge, huge understanding of how you might need to interact with them, how you might need to behave with them, what words you might need to use, how you might need to, kind of, in the case of a poker game, kind of call their bluff, how you want to be able to, I think I said motivate, manage, communicate to, engage with, all of those things. And so it's just naturally best, at least in my view, to really understand that. Now, I didn't have a really clear understanding of that for many, many, many years. Yet I had the best teacher around it when I was in my mid-20s. And I reference her a lot. So her name was Nikki Myers, and she was my boss as I was a buyer. She was a divisional merchandise manager, and she had this uncanny ability, enviable ability to really not only read, but adjust, shift, and influence what she needed out of every single one of her buyers. So we could be sitting in her office for a weekly status meeting, first thing Monday mornings. And she's behind her big ass desk, and we're kind of in chairs in front of her. There's 6 of us. And she could literally kind of start with Annie, who was this older woman from France and very genteel. And she needed a lot of stroking and a lot of, supporting and motivating. And Nikki would shift and adjust and communicate and engage with her just like that. And then she'd move to Gail, and Gail was this fiery New Yorker who didn't need anything sugar-coated, didn't need to be stroked. Just tell her the way it is, and she's totally okay with that. And then you'd move on to Francine, and Francine, was kind of in between, those two, kind of in between. Give me some compliments, acknowledge that I'm here, acknowledge that you see me and hear me. At the same time, you don't need to necessarily sugarcoat it. So anyway, so Nikki just had this unbelievable ability to just transform her entire being, even from the way she sat, the way she leaned in, the way that she would kind of really listen, and acknowledge that she's listening and understanding. I wished for decades that I had paid more attention and appreciated that skill that she had as I moved into my 30s and 40s, which was my most troubling, challenging leadership period of my life, which led to my being let go. So, Nikki's influence on me in that regard had always stayed with me. I just didn't stay very conscious of it and aware of it. And I didn't feel it was important, just like what this individual might be asking at a young, I'll say he's in his 30s, but he's young in the managerial. Like right now, he's a team member, and he's working his goals, to advance through the organization. Uh, so he's even late in recognizing kind of the power that has for him to be effective in being able to influence, communicate, negotiate, delegate, coach, develop, and lead individuals is to really understand what makes each of your team members, in his case, tick. What do they need? What do they desire? What do they want? What motivates them? What demotivates them? What gets them to listen or respond when needed? What really will allow them to kind of go to bat for you and support you and be there for you when you need it? Really understanding the personalities and styles of the people around you and the people that you engage with, whether at home or at work, is a huge, huge benefit and value that will have on your, work and life. And the skill is not difficult to learn. What has to be learned is your ability to be aware, your ability to kind of be present, actively listening and observing and watching, so you can pick up the cues that folks are giving you when it comes to how they want to be communicated to, how they want to be delegated, how they want to receive feedback, how they want to be managed, how they want to be supported, how they want to be honored, how they want to be disciplined, all of it. You just have to kind of get in touch with paying attention to how other people around you behave. And I say that lightly. It seems as if it's lightly, but it's really hard to do because we just seem to be operating at warp speed as robots, just ramming through life, not really kind of slowing down and taking conscious, intentional time to look at who's in front of us. And if you can learn that skill, it is of huge, huge value. Now, one way to learn that, and this is another area that I've been spending a lot of time with over the last several months, is there's a number of kind of personality assessment type of modalities out there, I'll call them, techniques. And one of them that I focus on is called DISC, and it's an acronym, DISC, and it's an acronym for 4 different personalities and styles of individuals that if you really learn to understand each one of them, then you will kind of have a clearer idea of kind of how to position each of those individuals that you're working with, that you're engaging with, that you're maybe your clients and your vendors, people you're negotiating with and you're trying to influence, a sale or a purchase from. If you can really identify what their personality and style is, you'll have a huge hand up in regards to being able to really connect with them and influence the outcome of what it is that you want. Now, I'm not saying that in a ulterior motive type of way. I'm saying it in the way that just makes your relationships with them far more effective than if you don't really understand who's across the table from you. So DISC, to get a little bit deeper into that real quick, DISC stands for DISC, as I mentioned. D is dominant, I is influential, S is steadiness or steadfast, and then C is conscientious. Some people also use C as compliant. And so those kind of map out the various personalities out there. So really think about it and look around at, your teammates, your family members, whether it's, your immediate or the extended. Look at your friends. Are they the domineering type? Are they the ones that just come on really forceful and aggressive and power is important to them? Or are they eyes, influencers? Now, influencers in the way of they love to socialize, they love to gab, they love to converse, they love to meet and greet and socialize with others. They could be very strong like the D's, but they also have this element of being a people person. They love a party. At the same time, they could have, attributes of the other styles. Then you have S, steadiness. And, again, that conveys, this image of someone who, likes things steady, likes things predictable, conscientious, even though that's also heavy C, but they're, the S's just are calm, cool, and collected under fire. And therefore they're really great to have around you when, you're in trouble and you need some help and support. So that's S's. And then you have C's, which again could be compliant or conscientious. And these people are really they're preferred individual contributors. They're preferred to kind of give them an assignment, leave them a note alone. They're analytical. They're very loyal. They're very trustworthy. They just like to be kind of given an assignment and then move out and they'll get it done for you. They're also very by the book. That's why compliant is in that C. But conscientious is the fact that, you can trust the information that they give you because they're very conscientious about, whether it's right or wrong, accurate or not accurate, so forth and so on. So again, I bring this up because when it came to him really understanding what the value would be of personalities and styles of the people around him, especially as he advances in his career, you could be a C-level executive right now. And that could be even include a CEO. And if you really have never really put time into understanding the various personalities and styles that you have on your team, in doing so can have an immediate positive impact on how you engage and relate with them. So it's just a skill definitely worth learning and knowing. If you are really wanting to have rich, productive, results-oriented, interconnected relationships, whether it is at work or at home, would be a great foundation for you. Okay. All right. Those were the questions that we had, and I'll take a look around to see if there's any others that were coming in. I didn't see any though. I do thank our contributor who did reach out with a question and some comments in regards to her own situation and challenge in the workplace. And again, we're here every Thursday at 1:00. And throughout the week, you could be posting questions or sending them to me directly. Link in with me, as it says right there, link in with me, Bernadette Boas, and then send me an email and explain your question, explain the challenge that you're having, the help that you need. And I am here to provide that for you. All right. And be sure to, whether you're joining us on Facebook on our Shift to Riches Today page, or on LinkedIn, be sure to kind of mark your calendar for 1:00 on Thursdays and get the support and the help that you need, because I absolutely am honored and I love providing you the tips, the advice, sometimes tough love, for you to create the riches in life that you deserve. All right. So I'm Bernadette Boas of Ball of Fire Coaching. I'm so glad that you're here watching it live, and or if you catch this in replay. And I'll look forward to seeing you right back here next Thursday at 1:00. Take care, everybody. Bye.